Why are these shows so appealing that offer alternative narratives to history? The idea that from where we come from isn't so instinctual, isn't so primitive. The idea that there's advancement in the past just as much as there is in the future. I offer the theory that it is because of the idea of change. Nothing is more addictive than the idea of change, and especially instant change. The idea that we can look for answers, and from the actual notes that arise from depicting what we discover, we can change our immediate lives. It means that what we do on a day-to-day basis is different. The idea that we can escape our realities. And I think that this is very appealing to the mind because the mind is always trying to find ways in which reality itself can be presented in a manner which is much more simplistic. Something which, at the same point in time, while it means reality means more, it offers a solution to the meaning of reality, which means that the work and the idea of this experience that we have actually comes from a place what is so magical that we can identify the deified. We can identify the idea of there being something supernatural. And from this place, we gain confidence in our realities and confidence in which the idea to change our reality in a present moment is thrust upon us in a way which makes us feel more connected to things and not necessarily like life itself is based upon the competition of things. So it alleviates competition, which in life is sort of one of the main directives in which everybody faces some point in time in their existence. The idea that everybody is out competing against one another. Now, if we all come from this magical place in which the interactions are solved, then immediate change can come to our lives in this reality, and it's just as much an effectuate on our systems as being uncomfortable in a social circumstance which leads to there being some form of hierarchy presented between you and your peers. And it offers a solution to these things on a day-to-day basis, which the less you believe that life actually has fear involved, it offers an escape to this fear, an escape to the frailty of existence, the frailty of life, the ability that you actually have to change reality, all by actually being something which is opposed to the current habits among you and others. It's very fragile, this experience that we have. And this idea that things themselves can be without the unknown, be without the competition and all of the pain and suffering of trying to accomplish something within your life that leads to this internal hardwiring that we have that has programmed us to participate in these activities which, promote the feeling that we gain, which just runs into this cycle of, how you gauge yourself in regards to the populace at hand. This stuff offers a solution to that. It's so appealing to the mind because it's just saying that if we can understand this and if this actually exists, then the way that we're doing things is completely wrong. But I would just like to promote some other incentivizing factor of psychology where this is present, and it's just in the idea of changing yourself anyways, which is uncomforting. The idea of being able to interact and socialize and be in the public view, where true directive of somebody's life directly affects their ability to interact and exchange, emotions with people and thoughts and ideas, and actually how successful they are in this broad interaction within their lives. And a lot of these ideas promote that if there's just some way, and it's a tale as old as time, that we can acquire things easily in our realities, then it would be so much better. This thing exists, but human beings are capable of being very deceptive themselves. And all of these stories and all of these objects that are found, and the mysteries of the universe and how consciousness itself arises and where consciousness comes from. I wish that there was a complete answer to all of these things, as much so as there could be a complete answer to the history of mankind and the ones that we should look up to, the ones that should lead us and tell us that things are all right. What stories would they say that would allow us to sleep at night? Are words themselves empowering? And are some people just better at singing? Which gives us the whole idea that life is brutal if some people are just better at certain things than other people. Life is very unforgiving. It's very harsh. It's very critical. And if we could discover the idea of our connectedness to all things, then it reduces this idea of competition amongst it, right? Which mankind has quarreled with and about and over for as long as mankind had a mind to observe something that could be itself outside of itself, which is relating to another human being, as much as one thing could say that it relates to another thing at all. And I think that it's very intriguing that we embark on these journeys and we can take positions and sides on these things, when there's always a greater picture to be looked at. There's always something greater to be understood. And at what point in time should we leave a certain area of some interaction with something and say, well, the interaction isn't necessarily with, discoveries of mankind. It's with our ideas of the laws of nature. And where do we ourselves arise from? And how are we ourselves connected to these things? Which then gives us so much light into the creativity and imagination of the mind of man and our ability to be storms and the sun. It's being able to connect with something that is so faint but distant to us, yet related at the same point in time. Which is why we are human. Which is why we care about things that are outside of our own pain and suffering, which can actually lead to it, because we're able to relate to things outside of our immediate experience to so much extent. We see the connections and how it will affect us in our daily lives and our meditations and our habits. So at what point in time in these arguments should we declare, again, what are we seeking, unity or difference? And should we change the conversation to then being something as to, well, what are humans in the first place? And what are the first evidence of humans if we just switch the context of our dialogue and start talking about interstellar cosmic events, which we ourselves have a deep and distant connection to? So that we say, what is the point in time in which consciousness itself arises in all of these things, which can give us a greater idea as to unity rather than difference. But I believe that all these things, they entice the mind. They're very appealing for these reasons. The reason for all of these myths and legends and history itself. Is life thrust upon you? The complex dynamic of all facets of man and the perspectives and focuses in which he can have in a life to say that this is what existence is about. It is very intriguing, all of it. But it's very easy to get caught up in things and to not recognize that as a man, an individual, the perspective can change, and in changing the perspective, you can change everything. If man is everything. Is it scary? Is it comforting? Does it help you sleep at night? Is it something that allows there to be greater advancement in terms of what we can conceive possible in this world, which we have been given the gift of living in and of, to the point in which we can deny fact itself by saying, how could we not know that everything is merely a dream of this one thing, and there being a greater reality to that? The dream of the cosmos, the dream of the stars. And is this what a lot of this ancient literature points to? Is this greater understanding of things, that mankind is a complex and dynamic individual, that life is full of professionals and of people who are poor? That if reality has a set function from which we can actually gain some insight from, where do we fit in within that whole narrative? Are we just experiencing it? And how many levels to this are there? The idea that the laws of the universe have just come from something that has bumped itself into being by accident. Then within that reality, there's actual seeing. There's true being. Then what does that tell us, though? What does that truly actually tell us? Does it tell us more? Does it tell us less? Does it hide things, or does it confess? And if we knew all these things, and if everybody was to take this into consideration, what would the work be? Would we still need to pick up after ourselves? Sometimes the hardest thing to do. It's simple and lazy, but it's something almost everyone's gone through. Is there some place where we can deny even that? We can somehow grow fat? Is it through some innovation, taking advantage of the place that's already in action? Or is it through some realization that the more primitive we are, the more we're a part of all these things that come from really far? And then we can do less anyway. What's then the right way to look at this and say, what is advanced? What is civilization? If we could only hear what people said when they were in frustration from all points of view, from all over the world. What do they believe this frustration is? Is it something to do with the thoughts that one has in regards to the situation that presents itself and their perspective of themselves in this world? What actually really matters? Is there some idea that someone can come up with that gives us so much direction as to its being important that it won't fail anyone? What then is life without this strife, which I believe is something paralleled in many narratives of man, is ancient as yesterday, when talking about escaping strife and overcoming, and the complexity of there being differences on the earth throughout the history of it. Do I take one side or the other? I certainly would like to take the side that seems to use rationale, for I would like to consider myself a rational man. One that could actually take fact and extrapolate, and also at the same point in time understand emotion's place within and without an argument or a discussion. I think that these ideas of reality being imprinted on history, it almost couldn't be if everything's as spiritual as what I see. But could it all be fake? Could it all be some mistake? Could there be some point as to it having no point at all? Which is sort of just like tricking the mind into saying that it's just better to look at it this way. It's not necessarily contradictory. It's just a better way to look at it. But it's funny to say it in a way which says nothing has a point, and in so doing, say that if you were to prove that, you'd have to prove things with a point. And I think the greatest thing that actually you can put all of this up to are these ideas that everything exists simultaneously within some single point in time from which all things came from. And in so being, they've never actually happened as much as they've been done, because that's like the place in which free will exists, the point in which all things come from. And obviously there's a very finely tuned dance between these things for the experience that we're seeing in this world that we call our own. Could I escape every argument this way, or will I just put myself in such a place of frustration in miscommunication amongst people of my own and distant nations? I don't know. What is life supposed to be filled with? More of this? Is this part important? If I was to actually be doing something which would disregard any of this, would I actually be doing it better? Or will the world have something to miss without my doing this? I think I made my point. And the point is that if there is a place in which all things come from, then time is interconnected to it, which means that as much as it's already been done, It hasn't been, because that place exists at every point in time. And it's our interaction with that which should be taken into consideration. Which, if I am correct, the narrative supports that infinite place from which all things come from in the Big Bang Theory. So yes, reality is just as much as an illusion as it is reality. In that, as soon as there is one place in which all things come from, time itself is interconnected to already having been done from that place, but in that place it's never been done, because everything can be predicted, because that place is all knowledge. So any direction it moves will be like fate. Now, obviously, this thing is moving into all places at the same point in time, which creates all possibilities that could be possible. Okay, which is like then the explanation of the multiverse. So you have this going in all directions, but it all relates to this same thing still at some point in time, and this same thing is within all these things. It's called possibility of reality. And at the same place where there's possibility of reality, there's reality's impossibility. Thank you.